Hyundai Kona EV is one of the hottest electric cars to enter the market since Tesla. Their sales started last year to rave reviews, and yet this month their sales are crashing. Why? Well, I have a great guest to explain this. All of this is coming up next. Welcome to E4 Electric, your number one source of unbiased electric car news. If this is your first time here, go ahead and smash that subscribe button so you don't miss anything moving forward, but most importantly, become a part of this community. All right, we haven't talked about Hyundai Kona in a while because the news has been good and they kept selling it, but there's something happened with their sales, and as you know, at the end of each week, we have this new weekly segment plugged in with my good friend Tom Moloughney, who is the contributing writer of InsideEVs, and he's here to explain, and he's got a pretty interesting explanation why such a popular car that's pretty much been sold out for months now has a waiting list in most of the countries where it's on sale, why the sales are crashing. This is definitely a weird one, and I've been really rooting for them for a while, so this is pretty concerning. Now, before we get to that, I just want to remind you guys that this video and this channel is sponsored by Accelerate Auto. The extended warranties, the third-party warranty for all electric cars, including Tesla Model 3, up to 125,000 mile coverage, only $100 deductibles, and if you look into the description of this video, you'll see that they're offering an exclusive discount just for you guys, my audience, of $100. Make sure to figure out which state you're in and which link to click. So check that out. But for now, let's move on with our show and welcome my weekly guest, Tom. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Alex, how's it going?
It's been a long week, but it's been an interesting week. And you know, to be honest with you, until you mentioned this, I did not know that Kona's been in kind of a trouble here. And so, you know, walk us through this. Tell us what's been happening. And you know, I already mentioned and I covered, you know, Kona EV a lot on my channel. I'm a huge fan, just like you are. What's been happening with them?
So I didn't really realize it either. And until I was checking out the Hyundai Kona EV Facebook group, there's a pretty good group on Facebook that's just chats about all things related to the Kona EV. And I noticed that a group member, Thomas Schultzke, has been putting together a monthly graph that shows Hyundai Kona EV's worldwide sales, both domestic and exports. So if you take a look at the graph that you've posted up there, sales were increasing very nicely. You know, in the fall of last year, you know, we went from 2,000 to 4,000 to 5,000 plus in November and December. And then look what happened in January. January dropped down to just over 3,000. Now February is just barely over 2,000. So after producing and selling about 11,000 Kona EVs in November and December, they've done about 5,000 in January and February. And before anybody says, well, nobody wants these cars, that's just completely not the case. There's a huge demand for Kona EVs right now worldwide. Europe, people are being told there's a year waiting list for them, and they're getting on that waiting list. In California, where the cars just started arriving about a month ago, some of the dealers are slapping as high as $10,000 premiums on top of the MSRP. I've had a few of my California friends ask me if I have seen any of them showing up in New Jersey, because New Jersey is one of the other 9 other, besides California, ZEV states that's going to be getting the cars. So they wanted to know if there were any here, and they'd like to buy it and export it. Now, understand, even if they paid MSRP here, they're still losing the $2,500 CVRP discount that they could get, or rebate, in California. So they're just willing to give that $2,500 rebate up just to be able to get one at MSRP. So the demand is there. It's a pretty compelling car. And for some reason, Hyundai has dramatically pulled back on production. Now, I will point out that the figures we have here are worldwide sales. not actually production. Hyundai doesn't report that, but I can't come up with a good reason why they would have continued to produce them at such a robust number, but then not sell them. So the only hiccup that they've had was they had to have a uh, airbag reprogramming. There was a recall on them, and the cars had to be reprogrammed, but it was about a 15-minute fix. So that would not slow down sales. That's the kind of update that could be done at the port in wherever country the car is going to be sold. Hyundai would just ship the cars out. When they land there, the reprogramming gets done and off to dealers. So, you know, it's kind of a little perplexing. We've reached out to Hyundai. We haven't gotten a response yet. And the speculation is that they just can't produce enough batteries. But even that has flaws, because why were they producing so many batteries in November and December, and now they can't produce enough? So, you know, I don't have a real exact reason. The speculation is batteries, because that seems to be the weak link in the manufacturing of all electric vehicles. A lot of manufacturers are complaining about being battery constrained. And, you know, there's manufacturers like Nissan and Tesla that went out and said they're going to be an active member in the production of their batteries, so they're not constrained. I remember having a lot of conversations with Nissan reps back in 2010, 2011 about their decision to open up the Smyrna, Tennessee plant to manufacture their own batteries. And I was basically a little perplexed by that at the time, saying, you know, you don't make batteries. Well, why are you doing this? Why wouldn't you outsource it? They basically said, look, we would if we could. We don't think that anybody else can make enough batteries that we are going to need for our demand. And that was a little surprising to me, but now I get it, that is the case. And that's, you know, could be the problem here with Hyundai.
So you're saying that the problem could be the batteries, but I mean, you just yourself said that, like, how's that they were able to, make enough batteries to deliver what I'm seeing about 5,500 at its peak per month globally. Okay, well, what happened with those batteries?
Well, perhaps they had a surplus of inventory. I mean, I'm just guessing here and speculating. Nobody has an answer. Maybe their battery supplier, SK Innovation, uh, delivered a lot of batteries to Hyundai in the coming months, in September and October. Maybe they got ahead of Hyundai's production rate. And then by November and December, once Hyundai was able to put the cars together at a quicker rate, they burned through the supply of batteries that they had on hand. And now now they used through that excess inventory. Now they're just kind of, you know, building the cars as they get batteries. And again, I don't have any proof of this. We're kind of grasping at straws to understand why there has been such a slowdown when the car is in such demand. Now,
Well,
a little,
but let me just also remind our viewers that, this is not Hyundai's first all electric cars. I mean, the Hyundai Ioniq has been a pretty popular but yet painful experience for everybody, including Hyundai, where the problem was the batteries. So did they not learn their lesson? And even if they didn't have the electric car before, I mean, anybody and their uncle right now knows, if you want to start making electric cars, the biggest part, the most expensive part, part of the car is the battery. There's a supply and chain demands and supplies right now that are a little bit of a in a disbalance. I mean, the leader in the electric car community, Tesla has its own factory that where they make nothing but batteries. I think it's the biggest battery maker in the world, with Panasonic, with a partnership with Panasonic. Like, are they like? I'm just baffled by the fact that they might not be able to supply the batteries from any manufacturer right now to make enough of these cars.
and yeah, you're right. It is baffling, and I'm willing to accept another explanation if you have one. The battery supply seems to be the best reason that we can come up with. And since you mentioned Hyundai's other electric vehicle, the Ioniq, I did, when I was doing some work on this article, I did look up, and I noticed that Ioniq production also decreased in January and February. They had been averaging somewhere around 1,800 to 2,000 of those vehicles per month. And in January, it dropped down to, I think, a little over 1,000. And then in February, it was only, I think, 600, 632, somewhere around there. So the Ioniq production has dropped pretty much around the same percentage as Kona EV production. So, that I think gives a little bit more credibility to the battery theory, because they, share batteries, and the other components that are used in the car, many of the components are used in other Hyundais, maybe not the exact components, but they get supply from the same suppliers. So it's still baffling, but it kind of seems like it's a battery issue.
You don't mean production, you mean sales, probably, right?
What do you mean? Well,
you were just comparing how Ioniq, exactly. Right? Okay,
yeah. Because
we don't know we don't know if they're actually producing them. And I do have another actually maybe possible explanation, and it could be dealerships, right? This is not direct sales. These cars have to go through dealerships, and as we all know, dealerships don't really want to sell the cars that they won't make any more money once they make the money on the sale itself, which is a lot of times not that much. Could that be? I mean, I think you know much more about dealerships than I do. So could that be an issue as well?
So the California dealerships are marking them up between $2,000 and $10,000 per unit. They'll take every Kona EV that Hyundai gives them. So that's not the case. And understand, we're not living in the U.S. bubble here. It's a little bit, the dealership experience is a little bit different in different parts of the world. And in Europe, for instance, like I said, there's a year waiting list. So the dealerships will take every single Kona EV that they can possibly get them, because the cars are already sold. So,
well, to play the devil's advocate, I mean, if they have a choice of selling a gas-powered Hyundai and grabbing somebody off of the waiting list for the Kona, could they still made a calculation that selling the gas car in a long haul is going to make them more money rather than this $10,000 markup for the Kona EV?
So and now you're tugging at my heartstrings, because as you know, I do electric vehicle dealership training for Plug-in America. So this is a subject that maybe one day we'll do a whole video on.
We should.
There's a lot to talk about. And so, when you talk about dealerships and they want to make more money selling cars because they get more service in the long haul, and that may be true, but when you walk into a dealership, who do you speak to?
I haven't walked into a dealership in a long time, but usually it's whoever grabs me off of the parking lot once I driven in.
That's a sales associate, right?
I would assume so,
That's not the owner of the dealership who's really concerned about long-term service, right?
Right.
So that sales associate just cares about one thing: making a sale and getting a commission. He couldn't care less if that car is in for service for the next 5 years. Doesn't make a difference to him whatsoever. So
really, so the incentives for selling, could there be different incentives for the
yes.
Just even the little guy for selling a gas car versus selling an electric car? Could that be an issue?
There's some of that, because we've noticed in many instances the electric vehicles have a smaller sales commission because the margins are tighter. So yes, there is there is reason to believe that many of the salespeople, one of the reasons they're not very high on electric cars is they make less money. And another reason is they have a longer sales cycle. It's hard for them to sell a car because the customers come in with a lot more questions. But we're deviating a lot from the subject here. And I don't think, and I appreciate that theory. I don't think it holds water in the case of the Hyundai EV, the Kona EV, because as I said, the demand is so great. There's waiting lists for these cars, and in many instances, they're being sold at a premium over MSRP. So while I think what you're saying definitely has some credibility, I'm not sure it really lines up with reality with the Kona EV. I believe wholeheartedly that there's a production issue. It's not a sales issue. It's not a demand issue. For some reason, Hyundai's making less of these cars, and we're trying to find out why. And we're going to continue to press Hyundai and ask them for an explanation.
I guess the reason I offered another explanation because, man, just like I said in the beginning of the show, I was excited about this car. You've been excited about this car. I think a lot of, I mean, obviously the waiting list speaks for itself. A lot of people are trying to get this car because it really is that and a Nero EV are the only cars right now in the market that are pretty much on sale all over the world where you can buy after incentives most of the time around $30,000 or even less than that, a compact SUV that's pretty good. It's got a good range, it's got a good looks and everything. I mean, I don't want to go on and on. We are on the same page there. I guess in my heart, like this breaking my heart, the fact that these guys are nowhere prepared to actually make the very car that they have such a high demand for. And I guess I'm just a little bit disappointed, and
Mhm.
we'll see what's really happening. I to be honest with you, I haven't reached out to my contact at Hyundai to figure out what it is. We'll see how honest they are with me on this one. But all right, now you were in the middle of something before I interrupted you
Sure.
with my
There's
crazy
one more
theories.
point I'd like to bring up,
Yeah,
Alex.
yeah.
And I've had some people comment that maybe that the slowdown in production was because Kia is beginning production on the Nero EV. And the Nero EV shares a lot of components with the Hyundai Kona, same pretty much size battery, same controller, same motors. That isn't the case because they actually have two different battery suppliers. SK Innovation supplies the battery for Kia, and Hyundai uses LG Chem. So I think I misspoke before and said Hyundai's battery supplier was SK Innovation. That's Kia's battery supplier. Hyundai uses LG Chem, and so that wouldn't be the problem. That it just so happens Kia starts making the Nero EV in January, so they get less of the battery supply. It's two different suppliers, so that's definitely not what's causing the issue.
All right. Well, we both of us, I'm sure, will stay on top of this and see if there's anything new, and both of our audiences will get the answers when we have them. Yours on InsideEVs.com and mine right here on this channel. All right. Well, so I've been talking about battery suppliers and production, and Tesla have been really, I mean, they figured this out right up front, right? Partnering up with Panasonic, now the biggest production facility of lithium-ion batteries in the world. The last couple of weeks we were dictated the topics by Tesla, right? And this week we finally were able to do this story, but at the same time we can't ignore what's been going on with Tesla and I was really hoping that the whole Model Y unveiling that we went together would be the last thing where they will finally settle things down, but I was wrong. Uh, what is your take on what's going on with Tesla right now and what's been happening really since our last conversation in Hawthorne, California?
Yeah, so it was a good time we had out there in Hawthorne together.
Yes,
It was
yes,
good to meet you again, hang out for the night, and do that video live from there. And I
yeah.
remember you telling me, geez, I hope that this is it. And they settle down and, their instability and kind of little chaotic behavior is behind them. And my answer to you was, well, what would give you that reason to believe that? You want to get little hints that, okay,
My
there was an
heart.
issue. Yeah, I know your heart. And it's my heart too. I hope that happens, but we don't see any signs of that yet. It's kind of like how some of the president's supporters say, I hope that he stops tweeting. I like what he's doing with some issues, but I just hope he stops the tweeting because it's not productive. And then you say, well, what would make you think he's going to stop just because 1 or 2 days you haven't had a tweet? It doesn't mean he's gotten past that, kind of wacky behavior. And Tesla is the same way. Alex, I'm rooting for them. I'm a Tesla supporter. I really, they've driven the industry. They've done so much to help push the needle for electric mobility. But what's gone on here in the last couple months is not good. It's this all over the map. It's kind of schizophrenic behavior. It's raising prices one day, 2 days later we're lowering prices. Then we have to raise them because some of the people that bought them at a higher price aren't happy, but we're only going to raise them a little bit. Dropping the battery for the base S and X. And that was one of the things that I always loved about Tesla, offering different battery sizes, giving people choice of range, dropping the referral program and now bringing it back. And this is all since you and I met 10 days ago. I'm not talking about 2 months of activity. It just is rapid fire. It's kind of reminds me of, I live here in New Jersey, and back in the 70s and 80s when George Steinbrenner owned the Yankees, he just wanted to be in the news every day. And he would just do crazy things just because he wanted his name and the Yankees in the back page of the daily news every single day. It's kind of like that with Tesla. They just want to be in the headlines every single day. So they're just tweaking this, tweaking that, changing this, changing that. I'm not a fan of that. I know a lot of their hardcore supporters say, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with that," but it's not good for a company to be, unstable like that, and kind of like not know, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. I'll give you a great example of that. Before the Model 3 $35,000 version was announced a few weeks back, I received an email from Tesla Legal, I think it was, thanking me for my continued support and asking me if I would help them in their quest to add more stores in New Jersey. Back in 2014, I testified on behalf of Tesla in front of the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission in an effort to allow Tesla to sell cars in New Jersey. At the time, the state was trying to stop Tesla, revoke the license that they had for the few stores that they had. And I was one of the people that drove down to Trenton, New Jersey, spent the day speaking on behalf of Tesla. And so I think that's why they sent me this email saying, "We appreciate your support in the past. We're trying to open up more stores in New Jersey now. We'd appreciate if you reached out to your congressman and your representatives." Then 2 days later, they announced that they're closing stores. And then a day or two after that, I got another email from Tesla Legal saying, pretty much, disregard that previous email. Thanks for your support. How could Tesla Legal not know 2 days later that they were going to announce that they were closing their stores? 2 days after they sent me an email asking for my support in their effort to open up more stores. I still don't understand how they didn't know that announcement was coming. Does Elon just wake up certain days and say, "Hey, I'm doing this today," and then it becomes the law at Tesla?
Well, I think I had an answer for that, and I think the ongoing lawsuit with SEC kind of shows that, right? I mean, I'm actually, I feel like one of the few journalists that actually ended up reading all of them dozens of pages that going back and forth, and from what I'm seeing, because I know people on the surface are talking about this war, but when you actually look at the evidence there, it looks like the whole thing comes down to Elon did not think, and that goes to what you were saying, that the tweets that he's tweeting out needed to be approved because he didn't think that they needed to be approved. Like, that was as simple, right? So no, I mean, to unfortunately, it does look like Elon doesn't really trust, or just doesn't really have anybody to kind of bounce this off. And it's kind of weird, right? Because he has got his mom and a brother and a lot of people around him that are involved in the company and have their interest in the success. But let me go further here, because this referral program, right? I hated the referral program after they replaced the original one with all these prices and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, I've many times flat out accused Tesla, because I know their employees have stolen the sales from me, and in a couple of cases I found out, and I'm sure there are a lot of them where it got stolen and I never found out, right? And don't forget, each one was $5,000 because that was a 2% off of the Roadster. But their new one is, I think, yet another mistake. And as I talk to the Tesla fans and Tesla fanboys and girls, their explanation and excuses are never on the side of a customer. It is always on the side of the what's good for the company, right? They're, and this was blows my mind, they're bigger fans of Tesla and Elon Musk than they are of themselves as customers of the brand. And that, my friend, is the answer why they can do all of this.
I guess, Alex, I haven't looked at it as closely as you have. I cover all electric mobility, and I actually tend to cover Tesla less than some of the other auto manufacturers, only because I know so many people are just, covering every little thing that they do that I don't need to. So I'll take your word for that. I just, you said he doesn't have anybody to turn to. I mean, that doesn't hold water. He's got teams of lawyers and advisors.
He
I
doesn't
can't
think he
imagine
has.
that
He
the
doesn't think he
14
needs the
think,
advice. That's what my point was. Is that I
well,
mean, he just doesn't think so.
well, that could be the case. And, if that's the case, you have to wonder, is he, still the right person to be the one steering that ship? I wouldn't be the one that says, he should leave Tesla. I think Tesla needs him. I think he's kind of, cult of personality. People love him. He's Iron Man, right? But, at some point, the company has to be a real company, and it has to act like a real company. And all these constant changes and, like I said, schizophrenic type of behavior, it's not good for the company, the stability. It really, some point, it's got to level off.
Yeah, no, and it's kind of sad that we're covering these two stories about these two awesome car brand makers, I guess, if we just look at Hyundai as an electric car maker in some ways, and both of them are just baffling, not good. And well, all right, listen, I appreciate the conversation. I'm looking forward to the comments, of course, but hopefully we'll have a more positive topic to talk about next week. If you were to just predict, what do you think the next week is going to be about? That would be my last question to you.
I think it'll be hard for us not to talk about Tesla. That's the only prediction I'm going to make. The only other thing that I will add is, the Kona EV just started arriving in New Jersey just the last week. They're showing up at a couple of showrooms. So a few of the dealerships that around here, because I visited all the dealerships just to see if they've got them, if there's pre-orders. Some of the dealerships have pre-orders. The demand for electric vehicles in New Jersey isn't quite as strong as it is in California, but there's a decent demand here. But what I'm getting at is, of all the dealerships, I found one or two that got their first Kona and didn't have a pre-order. So there's a Kona on a lot in a couple dealerships around me, just one, because most of the dealers just got one. So if any of your viewers really wants a Kona EV, maybe they live on the West Coast, they don't want to pay $10,000 over, I have a couple of dealers that just got one this week, and it's not spoken for. So if you want to
Wait, how could that be?
that,
I don't get it. How can it be if there's lines waiting for him? How can they have a car that's not?
well, that's market specific, Alex. And don't forget, I live here in northern New Jersey. There's actually some Hyundai dealerships here that refuse to even sell it. They won't sell Hyundai's plug-in vehicles because they just say there's no demand for them, and we're not going to spend the $100,000 to make a dedicated electric vehicle area in our shop. So Hyundai is only sending one car to most of these dealerships here in northern New Jersey, and they haven't said anything to any of their customers that the car is coming, and all of a sudden it just quietly arrived at the lot. And I'm talking about within the last 2 or 3 days. So some of them may have already been sold already. But I know of at least one dealership near me that just took in their car on Wednesday, which is 2 days ago. And as of yesterday, it wasn't sold. So what I was basically getting at was, if any of the people out there, any of your viewers that really have been waiting for a Kona EV and they're in one of the states that isn't going to get one, or a state that's charging a premium like California, if you want to drop your info in the comment section here, I can then shoot you the names of the dealer that I know has one sitting on their lot right now.
That's awesome. All right, let's get that one sold for sure. I mean, I'm actually starting considering it myself. All right, well, let's save our energy for the next week. I know we're doing this on Saturday because I ended up going down to Los Angeles to interview Henrik Fisker, and that video is going to be up pretty soon. All right,
Can't
man.
wait.
Well, I hope we have a better week as far as the electric car industry is concerned, but we'll definitely be back next week to wrap things up with the hottest story of the week.
Very good. Thanks for having me again, and I'll see you next week.
See you next week. All right, guys. Well, so I wish we had a sort of a better story for you, and I hope we will next week. But for now, it is what it is, and I'm looking actually forward to your comments because this is one of those stories where nobody really knows what's going on. And just like I said, I will reach out to my contact at Hyundai, but they're not always. Sometimes their hands are tied, and sometimes the PR people don't necessarily know what's going on with production if they haven't been told. So definitely I will keep my eye on this for you guys. But where I will accept the your conspiracy theories in the comment section. I'm sure Tom will as well. Of course, if you guys have not figured this out, InsideEVs.com is where you can see Tom's work. He is a contributing writer there, and it will be in the description of this video as well. This video will also be featured in his article as he will write it out. And a lot of times when he writes out for these videos, he actually puts a lot of extra information we didn't necessarily able to feature or get into on this show. So definitely check this out. But other than that, I will see you guys next time. And remember to stay charged.